one more question.
I'm impressed by your presentation. I have two questions, if it is possible to answer those.
Well, if he's quick.
Yes. What do you think about the Chinese concept of development and economy, and about its influence on the European economy and society generally in the future and today maybe? And the second question is, what is your opinion or vision maybe about development in the transitional countries, especially in the countries like Serbia?
Well, as you know, Serbia is bankrupt and has is now on the. I mean, I think that it's just a human tragedy of the great. I'll take the second one first. A human tragedy that when the Soviet Union collapsed, all these Yahoo neoliberal economists like Jeffrey Sachs moved in and said, privatize everything, and get rid of all government this or that, without having even the slightest understanding that our societies run on extremely complex public-private interactions, and have built these up for centuries. But nevertheless, the post-Soviet societies were supposed to just the market, and the market became, on the one hand, in Russia, the oligarchs and the mafia. So, I mean, the economic recipe was disastrous, but then even worse was that these people imagined they were now part of the European Union. They believed that they could actually run their own independent monetary policy without joining the euro, even if the others would have them. And in places like Hungary and other places, they encouraged people to take out hard currency loans in Swiss francs and in yen, because the interest rates were lower. But now, of course, they have to pay back these loans with a destroyed national currency. On top of this, the European banks came late to Wall Street's buccaneering expansion. And so they took over, they put lots of money into Eastern Europe and in Latin America. I mean, Spain, for example, has 3 times the exposure to bad loans in Latin America than the United States. Can you imagine? Spain is just this rickety little economy that's now collapsing, and they're out there pretending they can lend money to half of Latin America. So I mean, I believe that we're facing a huge financial crisis. I mean, most people, I mean, I would say that this crisis, not the subprime crisis, that the crisis of Eastern and Central Europe could bring down the world economy in a way that we've not even seen or thought about yet. I don't think it's a question of what can Serbia do to develop. It's like hold your hats and hope. But in the end, it's going to be the Germans. I mean, are the Germans facing massive manufacturing unemployment going to bail out Club Med and Eastern Europe? So anyway, the first question, I think is very interesting. I mean, I'm sure that the Politburo is smiling at the thought, that they didn't kind of privatize quite in the way that they were encouraged to. But I also think they're in deep trouble. I mean, really. I mean, 200. What is it? In the last 3 months, 20 million Chinese workers have lost their jobs and been repatriated to the countryside. I mean, China's development policy, regardless of its political form, was based on high volume, low margin exports to the rich countries. Now, in other words, they depend very heavily on the level of demand in America and especially, and they're committed. I mean, for example, I mean, they were producing steel and shipping it everywhere in the world. At low margin, but at very high bulk. I mean, they cornered a very large amount of the world's steel market. And But now they're losing it. I mean, you know, the Koreans and the Japanese have already bought up steel factories in Ohio. And they're already, you know, they realize that the globalized model of growing and, you know, using cheap labor and low margins to ship everywhere in the world, that is being undermined. So I really think that the value of the Chinese political model of capitalism, if you like, for the rest of the world will depend on what happens. I mean, people are going to say, well, that was a good idea, pity the country went down the swill, you know.
I think we should start to wrap it up, because you're getting more and more sort of...
outrageous.
No. I was going to say depressing. Could I, on behalf of the committee, thank you, the audience, for coming this evening. Could I thank the contributors to the magazine and those who contributed to the exhibition? Can I thank St John's for hosting us, and the 800th anniversary fund, which made some of this possible. And finally, I'm going to invite you to thank Keith Hart for giving us so much to think about. We may not agree with all of it. I wish he'd mentioned the education of women, which is high on my agenda, as one of the things that might help with a number of these problems in the developing world. But above all, I should thank him for his erudition, for pointing out to you the nature of the beast in which you live. And if you want to come and talk to me afterwards about how you mobilize against the centre of the university, I can tell you. Thank you very much.
How old are you?